5 things I realized. Y'all are sick of Zoom because y'all been here all day. I didn't know it was like that for y'all. I'm sorry. Y'all are the most attentive motherfuckers I've ever seen in a conference in my life. So I'm sorry. Hey, like, it's back. We back. It's a weird kind of back. Like, we're fighting with our relatives and shit about shit. You know, it's kind of crazy, but we're back. 2, thank you for rocking out with us since 9 a.m. Give yourself a hand. Get your blood flowing. We're getting through this. I'm gonna get right to it. My name is Mary Pryor. I'm co-founder of Cannaclusive, also co-founder of Cannabis for Black Lives, CMO at Tonic Trickle Farms Bardo Labs, and I'm SVP strategy at Wasserman Laundry Service. So it's been really great to talk to everyone. Thank you for saying this is a really inclusive, amazing experience. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna announce our panel. We're talking about maximizing opportunities for communities. Can Vlad, Rueben, and Lanese please join me here on the stage? Vlad, as you know, is the co-founder of Happy Monkey, a lifestyle entity that has been at the culture of New York publicly and otherwise for going strong years now. Lanese is founder of the Hood Incubator and also former chair of the Oakland Cannabis Commission, also a New Yorker, just like Vlad is a New Yorker. Rueben has just joined the Cannabis Control Board. You'll be working on items finance and public interest related as well. Thank you for joining us. I'm gonna get right to this, and if there's any things I'm missing about your intros, let me know, but I'm gonna start this because I want to get this done. I want to be able to be have us.
You are the masteress of ceremonies, Mary.
You know, I'm just trying to get this out of here. Clearly people are tired of Zoom. We gotta take advantage of this shit, okay? So, Rueben, you are relatively new to cannabis. I have to ask you a question. Is there a strain that you might try? Are you a consumer? Do we know?
That I might try?
Yes. Have you tried it? I just want to know where we're at. I want to know where we're at.
Have you tried the weed?
I'm sure I could get some Papa Smurf or some grilled
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay.
Somewhere around here.
This is important, okay? Given what we're talking about, the economic side, first and foremost, legacy or regulated, what is the advice that people can think about right now that they can consider given what will potentially be an inclusive future in New York State?
Thank you for that question. Thanks for having me on the panel. It's great to see everybody here today, and so exciting about this industry that we're all participating in the growth and development of. And one of the things about the bill that was passed by our legislature, and thanks to Chris Alexander and his work on that bill, and Crystal Peoples-Stokes on the work she did, it really allows us to have great small business and minority business participation. But I've been in the finance business for over 30 years, and working with minority companies, it always comes down to one thing: lack of access to capital. And so I'm working specifically, and the board is working generally, on providing a framework to make sure that our minority entrepreneurs have access to capital. So there's no reason that you can't be a successful business if you know how to run your business. And we're working very hard on that.
Thank you. Lanese, as former chair of the Oakland Cannabis Commission and at Hood Incubator, when we talk about these opportunities, and even just using the example of what's happening with loans and that situation, like we're hearing what Rueben says, and then when you're talking about being in a market that's been operational, what that looks like when you have to consider those opportunities for melanated communities. What are the things that you're seeing now as former chair that are manifesting as bigger issues now?
Well, I would give different advice now than I gave when I started off organizing in Oakland. And this is actually extra personal because I'm born and raised out here in New York. My family's still out here in New York, but I went out to the Bay to help those folks. And so the advice I used to give was, you gotta be all legit. Now I get it, I'm not a lawyer or any of that, and most people are gonna say compliance and regulation is good, but at the end of the day, you have to understand that while the Kennedys were politicking for the end of prohibition, they were still bootlegging. Everyone's talking about access to capital. The only person you can depend on giving you access to capital is you and your team. Now we can look at these black-owned funds or these white funds or the folks that are saying they're trying to get access to the funding, but the reality is there's been there's yet to be a regulated jurisdiction that has got the funds to the equity operator in advance of the market opening. All the intent in the world, there's no history of it. I wish for my people in here in New York, in my home state, that this state will be different, but because I've met humans and because I've seen this process happen in multiple places, my advice this time around in my home state is very different than what I gave people when I was all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. The white businesses are running regulated businesses, and they're running unregulated businesses. And then they're saying that they got robbed, they're getting their insurance money, and they're doubling up on getting that product outside state lines. The Kennedys did not become the Kennedys by being law-abiding citizens. 5 years ago when I started, I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I've seen reality. Do what you gotta do is what I'm saying.
All right, Vlad. So Vlad, I respect you so much because you stepped in. I want to just give you your flowers for that. You stepped in. You realized that you wanted to be a voice for legacy in New York, given everything you're doing. When you hear what Rueben is saying, and when you hear what Lanese is saying, what does that mean when you think about future and what this means for the opportunity you want to have? What does that need to be for you?
Oh, I always try to be, take myself out of the equation and think about, everything I do is based on, not just myself, but I feel like I speak for thousands of, legacy and social equity people that look up to me. After being in the legacy market for 22 years before Happy Monkey, I can't forget about that. But what I do feel like is necessary for me to get what I want and everybody that looks like me and comes from where I come from is there cannot be a dual market. We can't go California 2.0 and prohibition and, try to arrest our way out of the problems that are gonna come to the forefront soon. I think it needs to be a unified market, and for that to happen, we need people that come like me from the legacy market to have amnesty, to have lower barriers, to be able to, and to be frankly, to have a fair chance against the MSOs and big corporate money. We need priority in licensing, meaning like that people that do take this risk and come forward and ask for amnesty and decide to pay taxes or whatever they need to know that they will be a priority and they will have first access to market to be able to battle the other players that are more established and have billions of dollars. So I think for that's like a good step to start off, and then also to also not just get access to the licensing, because we've seen in places like Illinois right now where they just hit $1 billion and there's not one black or brown owned dispensary. It's not just a matter of just giving them access to the license, but giving them access to resources, to mentoring, to access to lawyers and etc. So they don't, set up to fail, and then once again, big corporate cannabis and buys the licenses for 20 cents on the dollar. So, and I think it's not just only the job of, the institutions. I think they need to help us put pressure on big private money and big corporate. They have to play their role. They have to put up funding to give up mentoring and resources for these people that are going to enter the market instead of wait for them to fail and then come get it for 20 cents on the dollar. So that's what I think is necessary.
So when we talk about this and the reality of what the MRTA is framed right now, right, we're talking about the opportunity where 50% of the market will be for melanated operators, right? We're talking about equity. And I'm taking out social equity because it's been shifted around so much in the past few years to where I don't know what the fuck y'all are saying when we're talking about what we're saying. So I just want to make sure we're clear, right? And I think even regulators are seeing that too when they meet with other operators and they're saying, we're doing this, and you're like, yeah, guy, that's not happening here in New York. So I think I want to just give the MRTA, for people who haven't seen it, There are things called out that are going with the intention of being mindful of that with all the research that everyone who's been a part of trying to shape the future of this has done. So Rueben, when we talk about predatory companies, when we talk about what Vlad is talking about here, the ceiling and the way that you have to consider application length, the financing, the triple tax that black and brown people get no matter what if we want real estate or not, right? We talk about trying to be able to just consider putting together a team, you get double time by a lobbyist who's taking advantage of you. You get triple tax because you have property and you're just Dominican. With all that going on, we're talking about maximizing opportunities and fighting these practices. How can the cannabis board think about this given that these are real things that are happening elsewhere and you've been studying it and trying to figure that out as well?
I think for better or for worse, we have had a chance to see how other areas have failed and have not done a good job. They've done a decent job of getting licenses out, but have done an awful job of supporting those licenses in a way that actually can be substantive businesses. And so we will do a couple of things. One is we'll make sure that from a framework perspective that our equity participants have equal or better playing field to get into the market. They'll have the incubator services necessary to apply for licenses without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. They'll have the opportunity when they get awarded a license to have business support. But most importantly, from my perspective, is we will help with the framework for how to capitalize a good cannabis business. Whether that's a dispensary, a delivery business, a cultivator, the capital structure is different for all of them. But there are ways that we can capitalize this business well so that you're not selling your business 20 cents on the dollar. You have access to the great locations. You're first to market. You may not win ultimately, but you're first to market. It's not because you're the last person to the market. We're going to make sure that from a real estate perspective, we solve that problem because we understand that if you're talking about the equity participants we're trying to help, whether it's a legacy equity participant or whether it's someone who's from the neighborhood, getting a real estate situation taken care of, whether it's finding locations, signing the lease, getting the credit facility, and then building it out are difficult. They'd be difficult for any of us. We're going to solve that in the OCM and make sure that we facilitate that because in order for us to meet our 50% goal, that's important. Now you might say, okay, that sounds all great, Rueben, but what have you done for me lately, as young people say. I'm the president of DASNY as well. We have a $2 billion construction portfolio, and we target to get 30% minority participation. One of the biggest obstacles has been bonding. Those companies can't get enough bonding to do the work we did. We set up a DASNY exclusive bonding program for minority companies doing business with us so they can access bonding through DASNY, not through the private markets. That has opened up a whole group of small entrepreneurs to be able to do DASNY work that they couldn't before. We'll take some of those models, some of the things we've learned over the years, things we've learned in other markets. We will not make those mistakes. We will make sure that we have access to capital and resources to be a successful business.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lanese, you and I have been working together for almost a year in restructuring and reshaping the future of Hood Incubator. You're doing a national program on cannabis equity. And one of the big things that you and I used to fight about was I was like, we gotta incubate, we gotta incubate, we gotta incubate in the way that really needs to incubate. Not this bullshit where people are becoming mentors and not giving anybody capital. Not this thing where it's capital on a stick and you're pretending that you're helping someone, but you're really just using them as a token. When we talk about what that needs to be here, when you have a legacy market that already knows the game, already knows the plan, and when you have people that want to be business owners and still in our community will not have $5 million in the bank to kick off, whether it's inflated or not. What does that really need to be when we're talking about incubating and providing ways into opportunity, not only for everyday people, but for those in the legacy market and the formerly incarcerated?
I think it's both and. I think there's this space between folks acting as if you had a plethora of money that you would be highly successful in the industry. And I think we see some of these well-funded VC-backed companies that are flush with cash and are just, month over month, just failing in the red. But their business model is, we got 20 years of cash to burn, and by the time the equity, because we're more funded, and by the equity operators probably only have 2 years. So it's like literally some people's business model is just to make it longer than you can make it. And then some other people's business model is that they're just kind of idiots and they don't know what they're doing and they're just burning cash because they got invested because they were more familial to the person with money than the person that was able to demonstrate month over month profit. And so we know a lot of folks in this room, as other folks have mentioned, you have customers, so you have data. So you have one of the more powerful parts. You need money. You also need support because then we know the money is like this chicken egg cycle thing. So I think we need both. And then the incubator part and these sessions is we have to remember that before I got into this, I already worked with adult business owners. So a lot of the entrepreneurs, small business owners I worked with, we are good at commerce. We know commerce. Commerce has existed before capitalism. Commerce existed during slavery, commerce existed during feudalism, commerce existing during capitalism, and commerce will exist in our next economic system. We have to understand that you can be good at commerce and not understand capitalism. So when I've worked with adult entrepreneurs in the past with their small businesses, they have had the ability to be successful. The majority of people operating commerce outside of cannabis, they know how to make the numbers add up so that at the end of the day, they're going to be successful. But when they transfer over into a heavily compliant industry like the cannabis industry, that skill set is no longer adequate because you've been policied out. And so we need these incubators that, well, one, yes, you know how to do commerce, but do you know how to do commerce in this capitalism, shark-infested, extract labor, extract value, extract type of way? And so I think it's both that we need, and then also you have to understand adult education, information sharing. This is great. This is information sharing. But if you go home and 3 days from now, you're like, I was supposed to take all this information back to my people, or why don't I remember that? Because this is not the format for adult education. We are not beings, we learn through story. So if you are taking in information in 2 hours and it's overwhelming and you don't go back, and that's the format of your incubator is a bunch of 2-hour workshops, that's not adult education, that's not training, that's not learning. And then what happens is you go back home, you feeling dumb, and it's a bad cycle. Sorry, I don't like
Thank you.
I'm so sorry, Vlad. I'm like, held my purse, Vlad.
So I think that the big thing that I want to kind of like take away from, and we are going to have people start lining up for questions, is this. So, Vlad, you already know the game. What does that mean? Oh, we're done? Okay, Jacoby said no questions. I'm so sorry. I lied. Do not line up. Jacoby, how much time do I have? Vlad, okay. You better make this a good answer, then we got to do closing statements. Vlad, you already know the game. What is there to incubate? How do you answer that? If someone's like, I need to incubate you, what type of incubation does that look like? If you're coming from a market where you already know what it is. Like if someone's like, you need to be a part of my incubator to go forward. Like, what does that look like? What does that even feel like? Like, what does that even mean?
Well, first of all, you mentioned a little bit earlier, Maria, I feel like the whole incubator program, aside from people like Lanese that I know have good character and good intentions, has just been really a system for them to take people like in this room's ideas and, pick one out of 100 people and take the 99 ideas and do them themselves. So I think I would ask, like, if there's some type of clause where, like, if I don't make it to the end of the incubator, can you just steal my idea because I didn't make it to the end? Or something along those lines, because I've seen that align. But as far as, like, what you're saying, like, I already know what I know, but only a fool knows it all. So everybody's always going to need more resources as far as like business acumen and structures and funding. So I would ask, like, what of the things that I don't know, like you said, I know the game already, what can you bring to the table that I don't know already to make this worth my time and worth me giving all my ideas, and like people like me and people in this room that have spent all their lives building up to this. And I want to say something real quick since we don't got a lot of time left. everybody in this room and everybody on this panel has a very serious job, and I put it on myself and my company first. Because what happens in New York in the next 2 to 5 years will not just shape out what happens in the local community, in the state community, but New York is the financial culture capital of the world, and what happens here is gonna change the national industry and the global industry. So we have to really take this really seriously, and everybody has to do their part. We have to, like I said, legislators helping us, create lower barriers to entry, us making sure that we're doing our part by mentoring, by making sure that we are working in unison with everybody, and then, like I said, putting the pressure on private money and big MSOs to make sure they do their part with their funding and their resources to give it to people like you in this room that really know the game but are missing that part. And I think that if we do that right, New York can be the beacon and the opposite of what happened in California, and be the beacon for the country and for the world as the way that it's supposed to be. And, everybody that is in this room can create generational wealth for their families. People can create legacies. People can end up being, instead of like Lanese said earlier, you don't want to be the Al Capone, you want to be the Kennedys. And everybody has the opportunity to do this, you know what I mean? So I think that as we all have a big job on our hands.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vlad. Lanese, I'm going to have you say a statement. I'm going to have Rueben. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. This is amazing. Thank you all. Vlad, you definitely, if you have another statement, I'm going to let you jump back in. But I'm going to start with Lanese, and then Rueben, then come back to you. Lanese.
All right. My statement, I'm going to stand up real fast. I just want to really, and remind everyone here that the cannabis community is a really strong community. It's actually one of the fastest growing voter blocks in the United States, evidenced by the 38 states that have legal, whether it's medical or adult use. We've done some really great work together freeing the plant, but what we haven't done is free the person. Every day, millions of Americans wake up in the United States as second-class citizens, unable to participate fully in our system, because there are roughly 50,000 laws that still negatively impact drug war survivors. So we have adult use cannabis, but we do not have an ended drug war, and we have not reversed the impacts of the drug war. The Hood Incubator, we believe that if we eradicate all those 50,000 laws, we would have one step forward, huge step forward, in going towards racial and economic equity. So we are here to support drug war survivors in their journey to make the cannabis industry inclusive and equitable, but that is not our goal. It's an activity that we do. And as we perform this activity with you, we invite you to actively work on racial equity and economic equity by leveraging the cannabis industry to end all those 50,000 laws. So hit us up, find us on the interwebs, the internets and all that, because adult use is here, we freed the plant and all, but the person is still not free, and that's the work that we're looking to do at the Hood Incubator.
Rueben?
Well, thank you very much. And, Vlad, I want to say that, I take your statement about New York being a leader humbly, and I recognize that we are that. And, I get up every day making sure that I do the best I can do to make sure we don't fail as a state, because I want to be the leader in that. I spent 30-some odd years in the finance business. I've worked with a lot of small companies. This is an opportunity for me personally, and us as a board, and us as a state, to really change the lives of the community, to really make a huge impact in generational differences in an industry. We talk about cannabis, it's really marijuana, right? I mean, this is marijuana from way back 30, 40 years ago. Culturally, we are the people that really embraced this back in the jazz era. We should be the ones that benefit from it. We should be the leaders in this industry. If not us, if this is not our industry, what industry is? And so I'm committed to making sure that New York is the bellwether state and the bellwether program to make sure that all of our equity participants, minority applicants, all these opportunities are taken advantage of to create true generational wealth. Not the NFL where you get a linebacker who gets $500,000 and he gets kicked out. I'm talking about millions and millions they pass on to your kids and your grandkids. That's what we're trying to create here. That's what we will create here. But we need all of your help to do that. So we talk about incubators and what's needed. We need to understand what are the gaps? Where are the places where you need help? For some people, it's the business of cannabis. For other people, it may be the business of business. It might be workforce development, but we need your input and help as we put this together. But I guarantee you that from our perspective, we'll do everything we can to make sure that this industry in New York is the bellwether. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I gotta get up for that.
Okay, all right. You got 1 minute, and then I have 1 minute, and then we're done. I'm timing you now. Jacoby said it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I can't promise you anything. I don't know what anybody is gonna do in the future on this stage in politics, but I can promise you one thing. Happy Monkey and myself, we are advocates by example. So we're gonna continue doing that. We are the example of what you can do coming from the bottom of the economic society with no investors, with no help, with no support. And what we did, anybody else in this room could do, and we will continue doing that. And look out for 420, because we're gonna do something that nobody's ever done before in this city and maybe this country. And remember, we don't do it for the clout, we do it for the culture, which means all of you.
It's rare when two water signs are like, he killed it, I don't know, we gotta let him cook. So I just wanna make a couple of things really well known. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and equality are four completely different fucking things. New York State, this room needs to be the room that people need to see in the entire country. And this needs to be the work reflected in everything that we do in terms of supporting and talking to let me tell you something, regulators hanging out in an event like this for 8 hours, this doesn't happen. I just want to be really clear that y'all are I just want to make this really clear. It doesn't happen like this. This is a rarity on so many levels. I'm asking for you and all the people that have been in these rooms for years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, join us. We need you. I'm tired of seeing the same people in the front, on the panel, all the time. There are people here that have given a lot as native New Yorkers and New Yorkers by work to this work. Join us. Please stay connected to all of us. Thank you for joining us at Revelry. Thank you, Jacoby.